Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. I have our special guest, friend of the show, author of What's the Matter with Kansas and Listen Liberal, which needed an exclamation point at the end. It's Thomas Frank is with us. Hi, Thomas.
Hey, Jimmy, how are you?
Oh, it's great to have you back. Thanks for being on the show.
In fact, the book ends, the concluding chapter is her returning to Wellesley College, where she gave the graduation speech in 1969. It was her first brush with fame. It was covered by Life magazine. And by the way, you know what she said in that speech? It's the most famous line from it. She said that politics, and I'm gonna get it wrong again here, but I'm gonna be close. Politics shouldn't be the art of the possible. It should be the art of making what is impossible possible.
What?
Yeah, there's just Bernie Sanders. That's Bernie Sanders. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's highly history is an ironic thing, Jimmy Dore.
Wow.
Anyhow, so she goes back to Wellesley College and is describing the era of Donald Trump as an era of enlightenment versus prejudice, and the smart kids are the ones who are going to save us with their because they have this ability to understand and this respect for reason. And that's how the book ends. And it's like this is someone who does not get it, will not get it, and I think cannot get it because of, even though she does try, by the way, and I give her points for trying. Even though she tries, she can't get it because of who she is and where she's from and her last name, basically, because of who she's married to.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more on that. You can't spend your whole life, which she has the last 30 years, 40 years of her life, in a bubble surrounded by other millionaires, heads of state, the most powerful people, corporate CEOs, and then try to come out on a campaign trail and connect with people. It just didn't work.
Yeah, she's learned that. I think one of the only reasons that all of this was possible is because people thought that if Trump is the candidate, that anybody would win. Any Democrat they nominate would win because he was such a weak candidate. And but that if you sort of flip that script on its head, as I did at the time, Jimmy, I don't know if you remember this, but I was saying, look, people are out there saying Donald Trump is the scariest presidential candidate we've ever had. People were using the word fascist to describe him. If this guy is that bad, you don't nominate someone because it's their turn. And you don't nominate someone who's another passionless technocrat. You get out there with your A team. You do your best. You don't just run someone because they've been a loyal foot soldier and now they get their chance. That's not what you do in such a situation, and that's what the Democrats did, and we are all paying for that now.
Don't you find it highly ironic and contradictory, even hypocritical? I remember people, not only the Hillary Clinton campaign, but regular people who supported her in the primary made the case that she's battle-tested, right? She's taken the slings and arrows from the conservatives over the last 30 years, and they can't.
That's true.
But what they would said was then they can't hurt her anymore, so that's why we should support her in the primary over Bernie, because Bernie's going to crumble as soon as they call him a socialist. Meanwhile, they've been calling Democrats socialists since 1964. So
that was largely bullshit, of course, because what they neglected. I mean, all of this reasoning is just wishful thinking. All of it is political. Political reasoning is always tainted, Jimmy. You got to remember that. Mm-hmm. And her book is an excellent example. This is an intelligent woman grappling with this incredible phenomenon of 2016, and she can't come to terms with it in a straightforward way. But the reason that's bullshit is because they have been basically doing a swift boat thing on Hillary since like 1992.
Right.
And this is someone with incredibly high negatives. And they have built that up over the years, knowing that the Democrats are going to run her someday. And, and look what happened. They walked right into the buzzsaw.
They walked. You know what? I saw her on a recent interview where she said that she's so condescending and disparaging of the left, meaning the Bernie Sanders progressive wing. She tries to pretend like she's talking about one or two people, but she's literally talking about half her party. Bernie Sanders won 23 states, a no-name senator with no money and no name recognition, won 23 states against Hillary Clinton, the most well-known politician with the most well-oiled and well-funded political machine in the history of our country, and he won 23 states in the primary.
Yeah. Yeah, and by the way, that's the mission of the Democratic Leadership Council, and the Democratic Leadership Council is long gone, of course, but that's the mission of the centrist wing of the Democratic Party
Is to get rid of them,
yeah,
right?
defeat and disparage the left wing of the party. That's what they're about.
And she does
that's
it.
The nature.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's very different than what you see the dynamic in the Republican Party, where they treat the right with extreme deference.
Of course. Well, the saying is the Republicans fear their base and the Democrats mock their base, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Well, the Democrats, it's not that they mock they do mock their base, but they look at them and remember the famous phrase from the 90s, they have nowhere else to go.
They have nowhere else to go.
They treat them with contempt because they know you're not. By the way, she gets angry at Jill Stein in the book. I thought that was a little weird too because, yeah, Jill Stein cost her, I'm sure. I know people that voted for Jill Stein. But, again, Jill Stein was playing by the rules of the system. That's what third parties are you got to take that into account. Third parties happen in our system. There's nothing strange or new or novel or, scary about that. They happen, and you got to take that into account in your planning.
So, instead of going at, so Jill Stein ran, the Green Party always runs somebody for president, and
and they did this time too.
Why not try to go after their vote instead of what they do? They mock them. In fact, in this interview I saw her just the other day, she says, the far left and the far right, they both want to blow up the system anyway. And she doesn't even realize, she says that disparaging, like we can just dismiss them now. No, you lost because of that attitude. Yes, they want to blow up the system where most of those people live paycheck to paycheck, and you get $500,000 for an hour speech to a bank, so you'll deregulate them. Yes, they want to blow up the.
What's fascinating is that Hillary did play the political game. By the way, go back a second. Trump really tried hard to win over Sanders supporters. This is, of course, nothing illegitimate about that. That is how politics, that's how you play the game. Whenever there's a divisive primary in one party, the candidate of the other party will make some pitch. I remember Reagan making a pitch for Kennedy voters in 1980. And, of course, Trump did that with Sanders voters. What's fascinating to me is that Hillary made her pitch for Republicans, but it was for the the bankers, the militarists, it was these
Max
kind of awful Republicans,
She was going after.
She would say those are the centrists. Those are the centrists in the party. The neocons.
Yeah, the centrists.
And she hangs around with those people anyway. So
yeah, the centrists like Henry Kissinger, Max.
By the way, she doesn't. Foreign policy doesn't come up in this, or very, very briefly. She talks here and there about being Secretary of State. She talks about the Benghazi thing, which I think was rather unfair. She does not talk about the wider war in Libya. It is not even mentioned.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, but Benghazi comes up, and that's technically part of it. So you can't say she doesn't mention it altogether. But she doesn't talk about Gaddafi. She doesn't really talk about what they did to Libya, or any of the other sort of things that she did as Secretary of State. That's just not that's not part of the book.
Iraq War.
I was really surprised by that. So her whole outreach to the militarist voters, to the military, to the neocons and the hawks, which we saw on display at the Democratic Convention in such a huge way. It was such a big part of the convention. That's not mentioned in the book. So she wants to understand what happened, but leave out the parts that are really
she leaves out the important
and awful. She wants to remember it in a way, of course, that looks positive and that sort of thing. But no, it's not. You can't take it seriously as an account of what happened.
So now you've read the book, and I just want to get your reaction. I'm just going to read you a quick paragraph. This is from the Washington Post's review of the book, and they say she is easier on Bernie Sanders, whom she credits for understanding the political power of big, bold ideas, than on Joe Biden, who campaigned for me all over the Midwest and then claimed that Democrats never talked about his issues.
She is harsh on Biden, which is also unfortunate. But Biden is not. There's 3 chapters about the war with Bernie.
Yeah.
If memory serves, and she goes after Bernie for page after page after page after page. So. And
the Washington Post pretty much just dismisses her.
Maybe they had to speed read it. I don't know. But no, that was. I think that was the. I've already explained why I think so. But that's the the part of the book that's really strikes the wrong note. I mean, absolutely the wrong note, and with Biden as well. But that's unless I'm forgetting, the insult to Biden is very brief.
Yeah, I'm just telling you.
It's like Biden should have been in those primaries. By the way, she never mentions Martin O'Malley in all of her score settling with these guys. She never mentions Martin O'Malley.
Really?
Everybody's forgotten this poor guy.
So sitting here listening to you, who's read the book and have written amazing books, right? Insightful books about politics. You've read the book, and listening to you, I get a totally different view of the book than when I read the review from the Washington Post. That's why I keep bringing this up, and because the point
surprise. Well, surprise, Jimmy Dore.
I mean, they're completely different. In fact, they go on to say, in a point-by-point debunking of the idea that she neglected the Midwest, Clinton chides the press for ignoring the substance of the Rust Belt tour that followed the Democratic National Convention. They don't debunk anything she says. They just repeat what she says. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, debunking, by which they mean like they disagree.
Yeah.
That's all. They disagree. No, she does say, she went on of course she campaigned in Midwestern states. She has a long passage about Wisconsin, which is the most embarrassing defeat for her because she didn't go there. But she did send many surrogates there. And in her defense, she says, look, this is what she says in her defense. She says, we had no idea we were going to do as poorly there as we did. The polls were telling us right up until the end that we were going to win in Wisconsin. Had we known that we were going to lose, you bet we would have done something about it. But the more important point here, and I should make this last point before I have to go, is, by the way, I'm going to Wisconsin. I'm going to get on a plane, and I'm going to Wisconsin. They have something called the Fighting Bob Fest to commemorate
Grand
Robert
Rapids.
LaFollette.
Is that where is that? Grand Rapids?
No, it's in Madison, of
okay.
course.
Okay.
But anyhow, she says, and you will find this interesting, that her advisors and many other people were telling her that the way she had to win, and this would include me, I was saying this too, the way she had to win Trump voters was with a left-wing populist economic message, okay, an economic message that was really liberal. And she's like, no, that wouldn't have worked. And we know that wouldn't have worked because I did have such a message and they didn't go for it. And we're like, you did? And she's like, yes, it was in like 0.23 out of 70 in my plan, blah, 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 blah. And just nobody read all the details of my plan. My plan was really good and it offered something for everybody and nobody could see it. And it's so tragic. Anyhow, there's some good stuff in there from Stan Greenberg, who is one of the traditional advisors to the Clinton family, who was telling her this, and he has all sorts of data on this subject, like why the working class is deserting the Democratic Party. Fascinating, and she disagrees with that. Can I tell you one other good thing in her favor, and then we'll stop? And I may have told you this joke before, but one thing that people probably don't know about Hillary Clinton, readers of people who have watched her speeches and stuff, she's very pious. She's a very religious woman. She's a Bible believing Methodist. And there's one scene in the book where she's describing she's in a coffee shop somewhere, and she sees a man reading a book, and she goes over and asks him what you reading, and he's reading the Bible. And she's like, what book? And he tells her, and she starts quoting. And she quotes line and verse. And I was impressed by that in a certain way because there's the lost opportunity. Have I told you this joke before?
No.
She should have okay. So I'm from Kansas City. In high school in Kansas City, we played a game called College Bowl where you had to answer trivia questions. Remember this game?
Yeah.
So in Wichita, in high school, they play a different game. It's called Bible Bowl. And what you do in Bible Bowl is they read the passage and you jump out of your chair and identify it and say what book and verse and line it is, okay? Or vice versa, they say the book, verse, and line, and you have to jump out of your chair and recite the Bible verse. And when they were deciding the debates, they're like, okay, well, the first debate, the debate between Hillary and Trump, like the first debate will be a traditional debate where the moderator will ask you questions. The second debate will do a town hall format. What should we do for the third debate? It should have been Bible Bowl. she would have wasted Trump. She would have whipped his ass at Bible Bowl, and she would have, like, people in Kansas would have been watching that with their mouths hanging open, like, oh my God, we got to vote for Hillary Clinton. This woman can identify, chapter and verse. Going through the Bible.
Well, you know what? That just goes to me. It just goes to show again. Another political misstep. They couldn't have made more political missteps. They're supposed to be political geniuses, and at every turn they made the wrong decision. There's a strength of Hillary Clinton where she could have actually went after the far right, the religious right, whereas Trump was going after.
She could at least have confused them.
Yes.
Okay, because Trump is this vile, groping, liar. They had a lot of doubts about voting for Trump. She could have piled on with those people. At least given them a reason to stay home,
yes.
It's just bad politics all through, and she never, by the way, mentions that's a possibility, that she could have used that in some way. That never comes up. These people have all of these brilliant, these fucking geniuses. They have no imagination, Jimmy Dore.
I know. I know. That's exactly right. They have a deficit of imagination. Just before you go. I've seen her, again, all I can talk about is the interviews she's done, but the interviews she's done, it seems like she lies and lies and lies, like pathologically, to the point where she says that, when she was running against Barack Obama and when she lost the primary, she immediately dropped out, endorsed him, and campaigned for him, and she didn't get that courtesy from Bernie Sanders. That's all the lie. That's a lie. She stayed in the race because...
Well, that's a long time ago, but I believe she sulked. Didn't she?
She didn't. She was hoping that Barack Obama might get assassinated in June. That's why she stayed.
I'd forgotten that.
Hillary Clinton said they were asking.
There's a lot of selective memory. I don't want to call her. I don't like that term to call someone like her a liar. But there's a huge amount of selective memory. Let's put it that way. Where she remembers some things and not others. NAFTA, who knows? But at one point she says basically that Bernie Sanders was mimicking her ideas, and it's like, no. No, that is not what happened.
Well,
Sanders has been pushing the same ideas for a very long time.
I know. I admire your restraint, and you keep it very cordial in your criticism. Unlike me, I don't have a problem. But I'll call her a pathological liar because that's what she is. And if you've read anything about a narcissistic personality disorder, or you've dealt with someone, and you watch her interviews, that is the personification of a narcissistic personality disorder. You're not saying that. I'm saying that. You're an above-board, real academic type journalist. I'm not, so I can say those things. I'm a jag-off nightclub comedian. So Thomas Frank, his book is Listen Liberal. Check out his review of Hillary Clinton's book in The Guardian. He's always welcome here. Thanks for taking time. Enjoy your trip to Wisconsin.
All right, you got it, Jimmy Dore. Right, see you later, man.
All right, buddy. Take care. Thank you. Hey, everybody, we have 2 live Jimmy Dore shows in September. September 25th, we're in San Diego, and September 18th in Burbank, California. Get your tickets right there. There's a link right there.